friends, welcome to the course Steps to a Startup. We have all wanted to establish a startup of our own at some point of time in our lives, starting with designing clothes and merchandising it, to making our own devices or gadgets, extending it to the most meager and major services to mankind. The human encounters a new problem every day and tries to encode its own unique solution. We find a flaw, we furnish the process, and flourish in facilitating the most fantastic solution that's available. With the same premise of thought in mind, we are here to provide you with a crash course about the fundamentals required in building a startup. So let's start, shall we? Now, the dictionary defines a startup or a business designed for rapid growth that has just begun to operate. But for the 7.8 billion people out there, a startup can be literally anything ranging from a figment of our imagination to realizing the most unachievable tasks, from going into the utmost depth of technology to establishing reign in the realms of the universe. The limit lies in your landscape. Our aim would be to bring you one step closer to realizing your dream and transforming it into your destiny. Now, sounds a bit dramatic. Don't worry, we'll make it pragmatic. To make your journey easier, we'll pick up one of the most important items on our checklist, the first principles thinking. First principles thinking, which is sometimes called reasoning from first principles, is one of the most effective strategies you can employ for breaking down complicated problems and generating original solutions. It also might be the single best approach to learn how to think for yourself. A first principle is a basic assumption that cannot be deduced any further. Over 2000 years ago, Aristotle defined a first principle as the first basis from which a thing is known. First principles thinking is a fancy way of saying think like a scientist. Scientists don't assume anything. They start with questions like, what are we absolutely sure about? What has been proven? In theory, first principles thinking requires you to dig deeper and deeper until you are left with only the foundational truths of a situation. In practice, you don't have to simplify every problem down to the atomic level to get the benefits of first principles thinking. You just need to go one or two levels deeper than most people. Many of the most groundbreaking ideas in history have been a result of boiling things down to the first principles thinking and then substituting a more effective solution for one of the key parts. The first principles approach has been used by many great thinkers, including inventor Johannes Gutenberg, military strategist John Boyd, and the ancient philosopher Aristotle, but nobody embodies the philosophy of first principles thinking more effectively than entrepreneur Elon Musk. For instance, Johannes' work combined the technology of a screw press, a device used for making wine, with movable paper, type, and ink to create the printing press. Movable type had been used for centuries, but Gutenberg was the first person to consider the constituent parts of the process and adapt technology from an entirely different field to make printing far more efficient. The result was a world-changing innovation and the widespread distribution of information for the first time in history. Now, in 2002, Musk began his quest to send the first rocket to Mars, an idea that would eventually become the aerospace company SpaceX. He ran into a major challenge right off the bat. After visiting a number of aerospace manufacturers around the world, Musk discovered the cost of purchasing a rocket was astronomical, up to $65 million. Given the high price, he began to rethink the problem. I tend to approach things from a physics framework, Musk said in an interview. Physics teaches you to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. So I said, okay, let's look at the first principles. What is a rocket made of? Aerospace grade aluminium alloys plus some titanium, copper and carbon fiber. Then I asked, what is the value of those materials on the commodity market? It turned out that the materials cost of a rocket was around 2% of the typical price. Instead of buying a furnished rocket for tens of millions, Musk decided to create his own company, purchase the raw materials for cheap, and build the rockets himself. Thus, SpaceX was born. First principles thinking is the act of boiling a process down to the most fundamental parts and knowing the truth and building it up from there. So let's discuss as to how you can utilize first principles thinking in setting your startup. First principles thinking can be easy to describe but quite difficult to practice. One of the primary obstacles to first principles thinking is our tendency to optimize form rather than function. The human tendency for imitation is a common roadblock to first principles thinking. When most people envision the future, they project the current form forward rather than projecting the function forward and abandoning the form. For instance, when criticizing technological progress, some people ask, where are the flying cars? Here's the thing, we have flying cars. They're called aeroplanes. People who ask this question are so focused on the form that they overlook the function by itself. This is what Musk said when referring to the fact that people live life by analogy. Be wary of the ideas you inherit. Old conventions and previous forms are often accepted without question, and once accepted, they set a boundary around creativity. This difference is one of the key distinctions between continuous improvement and first principles thinking. Continuous improvement tends to occur within the boundary set by the original vision. By comparison, first principles thinking requires you to abandon your allegiance to previous forms and put the function front and center. What are you trying to accomplish? What is the functional outcome you are looking to achieve? Ironically, perhaps the best way to develop cutting-edge ideas is to start by breaking down to the fundamentals. Even if you aren't trying to develop innovative ideas, understanding the first principles of your field is a smart use of your time. Without a firm grasp of the basics, there is a little chance of mastering the details that make the difference at elite levels of competition. Every innovation, including the most groundbreaking ideas, requires a long period of iteration and improvement. The company at the beginning of this article, SpaceX, ran many simulations, made thousands of adjustments, and required multiple trials before they figured out how to build an affordable and reusable rocket. First principles thinking does not remove the need for continuous improvement, but it does alter the direction of improvement. Without reasoning by first principles, you spend your time making small improvements to a bicycle rather than a snowmobile. First principles thinking sets you on a different trajectory. If you want to enhance an existing process or belief, continuous improvement is a great option. But if you want to learn how to think for yourself, reasoning from first principles is one of the best ways to do it. So I hope you have a fair share of the idea of the first principles thinking and theory, and I hope you'll be able to apply it before you venture out to beginning and building your startup. So congratulations on unlocking the step 1. Furthermore will be added in the coming up modules. Thank you for watching.